The Steyr M9 A1, oh yeah. Steyr was founded in 1864, right toward the end of the American Civil War. They have made firearms and small arms for countries all over the world out of Austria. In fact, the Steyr AUG is legendary with militaries all around the world. So today we're going to take a look at the M9 A1. And while this pistol has been out for a while, it's really coming into its own with this new model. This is the 4th generation, and there are some things about this pistol that I've never seen with any other of the modern striker fire pistols. Now, one thing that's always puzzled me about the Steyr M9 is why are these not popular? We've got a name, Steyr, for Steyr AUG. I mean, we definitely know that, you know, Steyr AUGs are battle proven, they've been around for a long time, and they are really great quality. And I've always wondered why these pistols haven't been as popular as I feel like they should be. And they're also from Austria, which we all know what other handgun comes from Austria. One of the big problems they had early on was getting these imported. Not really sure. They were first designed and released in 1999. So they've been around for about, 18 years. But one of the big problems was importing these into the country. They were spotty at best. There was a number of times for years they just weren't imported. There are a number of generations. This is the latest, and it's the 4th generation. There have been some minor differences, but one of the big problems early on was they had some extractor issues, and those were replaced. In fact, if you have one of the early models, you can get your extractor replaced, which adds to the reliability of the pistol. Let's go ahead and make sure the gun isn't loaded. Drop the magazine. It is 17 and 1, and then we have empty chamber. These are steel magazines. They really look high quality. I mean, they remind me a lot of the HK design with your witness holes. It has a 2+ base plate. These originally were just 15 round magazines, and these hold 17. And you get 2 magazines with the gun. Now, if you live in a state that has restrictions, they also offer 10 round magazines as well. These do come in 9mm, which we have here, but they also offer 40 caliber. But there are a couple of things about this pistol that separate it from anything I've ever seen. First off is we have this really high beaver tail and very low to the slide. I mean, it is a very low area. In fact, it kind of reminds me of the way the CZ does, how low it rides with the reverse frame rails. But with this, we have the conventional frame rails. This will really allow for it to be very easy to shoot. It makes it very manageable. The recoil is, the recoil is beautiful. I'll just tell you, it shoots very well. The grip's really ergonomic. You put it in your hand and it just seems like it molds in your hand. In fact, when I first saw these, it kind of reminded me of maybe Halo or something like that just has a super modern kind of space age type grip. But it's kind of funny because you have this really high area right here for a low bore axis, but then you have a large area at the front, which makes it a little different. It has an angled trigger guard, which is definitely different than a lot of the different polymer frames you're seeing, and we have a enlarged trigger guard, which helps with gloved hands. But there's texturing here. It's not super aggressive, it's not too bad either, and then we have these linear lines that go on the back strap and at the front, and then we have, of course, finger grooves. Here you can see the grip texture. Again, it's not all that aggressive. You do have the Steyr logo right here, and again, we have the linear lines that go all the way around front and back. Now, one thing about the grip is there are no interchangeable back straps. You get what you get. It's more of kind of a medium size, but it is ergonomic. It feels good in the hand. I have medium sized hands. I typically go with the small back strap, and this just fits my hand just right. It does have a dip right here for your hand. It kind of just fits in on both sides. It's not ambidextrous as far as any controls, but you can move your magazine release over to the other side. Your takedown lever, though, is on the right side. The slide is precision milled, and it has what kind of a tenifer finish, but they call it a Manox finish. And of course, it's impervious to weather, which you're seeing that on most of your firearms. But it does have sort of a gray finish to it, and it's very smooth. The serrations, while they're deep, they're short, and a little bit similar to the CZ because of the internal slide rails, but they're aggressive enough to where it's not too difficult to get a hold of. Of course, you know, if you have more slide area, then it's going to raise the slide up above. So this seems to work just fine, getting the advantage of the low bore axis. Here we have our extractor, and this is one of the problems in the early models that they had. You have your takedown lever here. We're going to look at that in a minute. We have an accessory rail with one slot, very similar, of course, obviously to the Glock. Your slide stop, minimal, again, very similar to the Glock. And a lot of the similarities to the Glock probably stem that one of the designers was an employee of Glock, or a former employee. And of course, being in Austria, that is not surprising. But also, one of the guys that designed this pistol also produced the Caracal. You can see that with the low bore axis in this cut right here. They do have a black polymer frame, and then of course this is the OD frame. This is made from an injected molded synthetic polymer. This is pretty much about the same size as your Glock 19, and yet it holds 17 rounds. Now the magazine does come out a little bit, and we're going to take a look. Here we've got a Glock 19. Really, as far as the length, pretty close. I mean, these are pretty close in size. You can see already I've got them on the table, so there's a little bit of difference in height, but that has to do with the base plate. So if this had a 15 round base plate in it, this would pretty much be about the same size as your Glock 19, which seems to be the standard for your compact pistol size. Now this is the compact version. Again, it is the M9. They also make an S9, which is a really small, more toward the Glock 26 subcompact, and then they make a compact version which is a little smaller than this one with the C9, and then they have the L9 for large, and it just has the longer slide, longer barrel. But another unique feature of this handgun is the sights. In fact, I've never seen sights like this other than on the Steyr. We have a pyramid at the front, or a triangle, and then at the back we have a trapezoid. Here you can see the back sight. It just frames in that front pyramid. And there are a lot of people that love this sight. There are a lot of people that don't like this sight. I think one of the problems with people that don't like it are they're just not used to it. And to be honest with you, it took me probably took me 100 rounds to really start getting used to this sight. I mean, it's very pointable, but to really get that pinpoint accuracy. Now, one thing about it, because of this front tip, this is very similar to your standard, like your ACOG, or a lot of the ACSS now are doing a chevron that comes to a tip. And that really allows for great accuracy because you're not just on a dot, you're able to get that infinity point on that tip. And so the more I shot this gun, the more I loved this sight. Now you can see the sights are definitely different. And then you've got that chevron tip at the front, and then of course at the back here as well. They do have options where you can get 3-dot sights. In fact, I think TrueGlow even does night sights for it, and that will be just 3-dot as well. But to be honest with you guys, I personally prefer this. And these sights are steel. They're the kind of a Novak style right here, so they're low snag, you can see, but they are steel and they're dovetailed in. The early models had a pin right here under the sight. They took that out, they replaced it again, and it's supposed to help with the trigger mechanism to make it even more crisp. The engraving is very nicely done, of course, caliber. These do, again, come in .40 caliber as well. And then of course Steyr M9 A1 and your different proof marks and your serial number. I like that the slide has a cut here. It makes it a little easier to get into your holsters and things like that. That's one thing about this pistol though, is you're going to be limited to holsters for right now. But I think that I've seen a number of new Steyr reviews online, and there are a lot of different companies that are making holsters. In fact, I think Blade Tech makes them and some others. And so you can get leather or Kydex, a number of different ones. As far as magazines go, the magazine price is about $35 from where I've seen. In fact, I looked on gunmagwarehouse.com. They're running about $35. Not super cheap, but not too expensive like your HK mags. They also offer a threaded barrel version, and again, you can get night sights as well. The length is 6.9 inches, the height is 5.35 inches, and the width is 1.2 inches. And the weight of the pistol, 1 pound, 10.8 ounces. So you've got a 26.8 ounce pistol. Glock 19, 1 pound, 7.6 ounces, which relates to about 24 ounces. So it's a couple of ounce difference. And another thing that I really love about this pistol is the trigger. It has the blade right here as your safety, just like a lot of the other striker fire pistols. But one of the things about it, and we're going to go ahead and test the trigger pull, you bring it down right here. It's a real smooth take up till you hit a wall, and then a really crisp snap. Let's try that again. Guys, this is getting into the PPQ or the CZ P10C type trigger. And I think maybe we need to do a review on those three as well coming up. But it is a very crisp snap. One thing too is, since I've had this open, when you have the magazine in and it's holding the slide back, this slide stop, I have had trouble getting it to drop past the follower. So I've had to relieve the magazine before I drop the slide. So we're just going to take the magazine out for now. So we pull it, snap, we're going to check reset right there. And one thing about the reset, it's short, but it's not really tactile or audible. I was going to check trigger pull weight, but my Lyman trigger gauge has bit the dust. But from what they're saying, it runs about 5.5 pounds. I definitely feel that this is around the 5 pound mark. Now, one of the reasons why this trigger is so smooth is that it is what they call double action only, and the striker is preset, it's pre-cocked. So when the slide comes back, it actually partially cocks the striker, and then it makes this really easy to be able to get a good crisp trigger. I'm telling you guys, if you see one of these and you're thinking about it, check this trigger out. This is an excellent trigger, much better than the Glock, Smith & Wesson, XD. I mean, it is just an exceptional trigger. Again, very similar to the Walther PPQ, the HK BP9, or the CZ P10C, which the CZ P10C is one of my favorites. The grip angle is a little different with the Steyr. It's at 110 degree from the top of your slide coming down in this direction to fit your hand. Some of the earlier models had a loaded chamber indicator, which was a small button right here that would protrude out somewhat. That's been done away with. We're going to use a dummy round just to demonstrate the loaded chamber indicators. Let's rack the slide, enter our dummy round. The extractor will protrude just a little bit, so you can tell that way, but also visibly you can look down and see that there's a round in the chamber. I want to thank Freedom Munitions for sponsoring the ammo. You get a 5% Suits discount when you go to freedommunitions.com. Guys, I'll tell you, at the range, because of that low bore axis, this gun just shoots like a dream. I mean, it eats recoil. And that low bore axis, it makes it really fast to get onto targets quick. Second, third follow-up shots, really easy. I mean, you can tell that this gun just really handles the recoil. With that sight system, again, it took me a little time to get a little used to it because it's just different. And I'm so used to shooting the 3-dot. It's just like with scopes, I love that chevron point because you can really get that tip. It's an infinity point. Same thing with this. Now, there are a lot of guys, there's a big debate about these sights on this pistol. The trigger, I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, you know, it is. We're going to do an upcoming video between the CZ P10C and the Steyr M9 just to check some trigger control, some of the other features. To me, I think they're very comparable. And I'm a big fan of the CZ P10C, so this should be interesting. Now let's look at disassembly. We're going to remove the magazine, check to make sure, of course, that the gun isn't loaded again. So first thing is to bring back your slide and lock it into position. We're going to take our lever here, and if you'll notice, it's on the right side and there's a small disc. Now this is actually a lockout feature, and you get a couple of small keys, and this will disable your handgun. Let's say you have kids around or you have people you don't really want messing with your firearm, you can lock it. I'm not a fan of these at all. Press this small button and then just bring your lever down. And actually, it's a lot more difficult behind the camera than it is on camera and to be able to show it, but there you go. And then bring back your slide a little bit and drop your slide and pull your trigger. And then it comes right off. Take out your captive guide rod and recoil spring. It is the flat recoil spring, which reduces felt recoil. And then we have our barrel. Here the feed ramp is nicely polished. It is the modified Browning linkless design. These are cold hammer forged barrels, so it's going to give you really extended life. And also these are just 4 inches in length. I think the large version, or the L9, is 4.5 inches. Here with the slide, you can see a few differences rather than a lot of your striker fire pistols. One noted is that there's no firing pin safety visible, but it is inside the slide. But a big difference is in this area right here. And you can see it's a lot different than most of your striker fire pistols. And a lot of that probably has to do with this really high beaver tail. Now, one big thing to note is that this is all steel all the way through here. So all your slide rails are connected, and they are steel, and they're pretty beefy. And guys, that's all you need to do to field strip the pistol. Reassemble in reverse order. We're going to drop in our barrel, our recoil spring and guide rod. Then we bring it back over the slide. Lock your slide stop into place. Take your lever, push down, it pops right back in. Now, as far as pros and cons of the pistol, to me, again, the low bore axis is a huge pro. The trigger pull, huge pro. The trigger is just beautiful. The sights, for me, are a pro. For some, that could be a con. The great thing is you can change these out for 3-dot sights with no problem, including night sights. Also, 17+1 in the magazine. I think that's a big pro. Even though this is a little bit longer than your Model 19, it's not that much bigger, and you're still getting those extra rounds. Now, as far as cons go, holsters and accessories are going to be a little bit of a challenge, more than some of your other striker fire pistols like Glock, Smith & Wesson, and your Springfield Armories. One thing that just a particular thing for me is not being able to drop the slide on an empty magazine. Now, really, it can damage the firearm if you do that a lot, so that may or may not be a big con. And really, I don't do that often, but that is something. The disassembly little disc right here, I'm not a big fan of those on my pistol because I feel like if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. The good thing about this is you have to depress it down in, so it has to be a deliberate action. It's not something that's just going to go and lock your pistol down. The grips, while they're super ergonomic, are not super aggressive. Probably would like a little more texturing on the grip. And of course, you could put Talon grips or something like that. I haven't checked to see if they're offering it for the Steyr, but I'm sure there'll be grip options, or you can stipple the gun. But to be honest with you, I'm going to leave it as is. I think it still has a good enough feel to it. With the finger grooves, you're able to kind of hold on to it really well. As far as price goes, I think manufacturer suggested retail is about $560. I'm seeing these around about $450, $475 range, in that area, in that ballpark. And then of course, if you add night sights, things like that, the prices do change. So I think that is a huge plus as well. Great price, excellent pistol. It has a company that has really, established itself since 1864. I think some of the cons have been its early reputation. Some of the import problems with the reliability issues with the extractor, things like that, but obviously they fixed those. And from everything I'm seeing right now, this gun is just proving itself to be really reliable and a great shooting firearm. And I want to thank Steyr Arms for sending this pistol for the test and evaluation with the different features that it offers that I've not seen with anybody else. Guys, you really need to take a look at the Steyr M9 A1. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. I really do like the OD frame, but it also comes in a black, and it probably comes in others. Let's see. Bolt action rifles and a lot of other things. How long has Steyr been around? They really, I was not disappointed. I've already said that, yeah. Of course, with the name Mannlicher, I don't know.